Okay, we'll just give it a few more seconds for a few more people to come in, and then we'll get started.
It's going to start light as well.
Okay, everybody, we might get started. I'd like to welcome you all to this special webinar event celebrating the International Day of People with Disability. My name is Bradley Lowe. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of AUSTSWIM, and I use the personal pronouns of he, him. In the spirit of reconciliation, AUSTSWIM acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I also acknowledge the individual and collective expertise of those who have joined us on this webinar with lived experience of disability. At AUSTSWIM, we recognise lived experience as a vital contribution at all levels and value the courage of those who share this unique perspective for the purpose of learning and growing together to achieve better outcomes for all. Finally, for those who have low vision, I am wearing a black polo shirt with the word AUSTSWIM and the platypus logo embroidered on the shirt. I have short grey-brown hair and a short grey beard. I'm appearing in front of a white screen with the words, "What does disability look like in aquatics?" the AUSTSWIM logo, the Para Mobility logo, and the International Day for People with Disability logo on the screen. We also have Auslan interpretation available, which is on screen as we speak. And we also have automatic captioning available as well. Today is an opportunity to celebrate disability, but also as we exit COVID, it's a time to discuss what disability looks like in our aquatics industry for 2023 and beyond. When I did my AUSTSWIM training back in 1995, I was also studying human movement studies at university. During my studies, I developed a keen interest in adaptive physical activity. That is, understanding how people move and how we can create efficient movement patterns regardless of their ability or disability. As I continued my studies while working as an AUSTSWIM teacher, I began to merge my two passions, adaptive physical activity and swimming and water safety. Through using biomechanics, or as we know it, principles of movement in water, and the Halliwick method, I began to work with people of a wide range of disability, and together we would create movement patterns that enabled them to get from one end of the pool to the other. These movement patterns rarely looked like a regular stroke, but it was something that ultimately worked for them. To this day, I remain dedicated to not only providing opportunities for people with disability in our industry, but ensuring that everyone can be safer in and around the water. AUSTSWIM recognises that leisure facilities face high demand by people with disability as Learn to Swim continues to be a strong choice for families as a therapy option, as well as a way to participate in the community. There are 4.4 million Australians with disability, and 2.1 million of those are of working age and capable of working, according to the 2016 ABS census. Some 10.5% of those are unemployed, and the percentage of those with disability who are both underemployed and in less meaningful positions is even higher. AUSTSWIM has always played a leading role in adaptive aquatics through our People with Disability course, our current Access and Inclusion course, and our community education program, MATE, or Making Aquatics a Terrific Experience. Recently, AUSTSWIM delivered a national program known as Removing Barriers, which was targeted at creating an aquatic environment and workforce that had the knowledge, skills, and experience to welcome everyone to enjoy being safer in and around water. We are excited to be able to continue this great work in the years to come. This year, we also celebrated the 10-year anniversary of MATE, and we will continue to roll out this fantastic community initiative throughout Australia. Our strategies for the next 3 years prioritise diversity and inclusion, and I am excited to announce that we have appointed Paralympian and diversity and inclusion advocate and specialist Matt Harnapel to the role of Diversity and Inclusion Manager with AUSTSWIM. Matt will lead the development and implementation of our diversity and inclusion strategy to support our industry to offer opportunities for everyone, irrespective of their ability, disability, cultural background, gender identity, and age, to learn vital swimming and water safety skills. AUSTSWIM are exploring the opportunities to engage people with disability as workforce talent to address the current teacher shortage using this cohort of Australians, along with other diverse peoples. We are also improving and extending the access to quality learning and development opportunities to our 31,000 licensed teachers. This will ensure that all teachers learn how to teach and engage with people with disabilities in a practical way. But you're not here to listen to me today. You're here to listen to a fantastic panel of experts and advocates in the industry. And we're really excited to introduce these 4 amazing people. I'd first like to introduce Rachel Watson. Rachel is a 2016 and 2020 Paralympic gold medalist and a former AUSTSWIM Removing Barriers ambassador. Welcome, Rachel. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Ruth Smith. Ruth is the Director of Aquatic Mentors and is our 2022 AUSTSWIM National Teacher of Aquatics Access and Inclusion Award recipients. Welcome, Ruth.
Thanks, Brad. It's good to be here.
Next, I'd like to introduce Emma Lavery. Emma is the Aquatics Program Team Leader at Kiawana Aquatic in WA, who won the 2022 AUSTSWIM National Most Outstanding Contribution to Swimming and Water Safety through Inclusion Award. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Hello.
And last but certainly not least, I'd like to welcome Tanya Mode. Tanya works for Paramobility, which is an innovative Australian company specialising in assistive technology to allow freedom and independence for those with specific lifting, mobility, and access requirements to live a more independent life. Welcome, Tanya.
Thanks, Brad. Lovely to be here.
So today is all about the future of disability aquatics, and an opportunity for everyone today to learn from our panel about what their thoughts and opinions are about the future of a disability in aquatics as we recover from COVID. So this is a question for everyone on the panel, so you all get to fight over who goes first. How do we encourage more people with disabilities to engage in aquatic and learn to swim activities as we recover from the COVID pandemic? Who would like to go first?
I'll go first, Brad. That's a really
Fantastic.
good question. I think one of the biggest things that we need to do is we need to actually sort of lead by example. So we need to show people that it's possible, because I feel like a lot of people right now, they have so many questions and concerns about how do we even do it? Where do we start? So the biggest thing that I feel when we introduce aquatics to anybody is show them that it can be done. Yeah, because if they can't see that example, then straight away they've got the doubts in their head. So if we can do that, that's a really good start.
It's a really interesting point, and I think you know, sometimes it's a little bit of a fear of the unknown, isn't it? And once we start to see role models in the industry, as you say, showing people that it can be done and how to do it, it demystifies things a little bit and gives them more confidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ruth, I think this sort of leads to some of your experiences.
Absolutely, and I'd follow on with that, Rachel. I think our swim centres, large or small, need to become like a beacon in our community. We need to be almost synonymous with working with students with disabilities. It's a slow burn, but when the word gets out that your swim school have the expertise, the confidence with the teachers, they're upskilled, they know how to work with children with challenging behaviours and disabilities, well, then that'll filter through the community. But I think that also comes with a willingness. There has to be a willingness to work in this space as well.
Interesting, Ruth, that you talk a lot about sort of education and particularly upskilling the workforce, but more importantly, that does come from that real willingness, I suppose, to be able to expand outside of the generic box that a lot of our swimming and water safety teachers find themselves in.
Yes, we have to get more flexible, creative, empowering teachers. Yeah, I think traditional swimming lessons are going to be changing.
Absolutely. Emma, that sort of, I suppose, leads into your pretty exciting program at Kiwanis, isn't it?
Yes, great. Our program, we aim at anybody and everybody. It's great that we're really able to be flexible for the student and the families. We don't always have to follow the whole levels. Let's see what you want to do. Let's see what's your favorite toy. What do you want to get out of it? We have families that come through that just want their kids to have fun, enjoy the water. Well, if that's what you want out of your lesson, we'll do that. We have people that just come through, just want to come in for a chat. So we have our customers that will just come and just walk up and down, and the week later they might find, oh no, let's do some swimming this week. So we find that have to be flexible and affordable and accessible. People these days don't have much money, so if we can do something to encourage and make a safe place, it makes a huge thing for our families here at Aquatics.
Very much so. I think when you talk a lot about sort of the flexibility and affordability of these programs, that really does become quite critical in the end, doesn't it?
It's massive. Most of our families struggle to pay their medical bills, their therapies. So if we can just make that a little bit easier by making our lessons cheaper, you know, encourage them to have free access throughout the term to come and use the facilities. It's a huge benefit for our families and our students here.
Absolutely. Emma mentioned then facilities, and I suppose, Tanya, that leads onto you know, paramobility around including the access to the facilities.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Brad. The key really is to make it accessible. Make sure you've got an accessible venue. Community consultation is also really excellent, whether it's getting together a committee or an access consultant. And a lot of councils actually have access consultants on their books, so they are available. Promotion is another really big key. It's really difficult sometimes to find whether a venue is accessible. And that honestly is easy to do. You can pop it on your website. If someone calls up asking if it's accessible, then they can be told what accessible equipment and facilities that you have. And another really good one is ambassadors such as Matt and Rachel, who are great for the industry to promote the accessibility across the board.
Absolutely. I think you definitely hit the nail on the head with around that promotion and sort of having those advocates.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree, you need someone within in each almost each venue or each facility to really drive these programs.
Absolutely. We come
Yeah.
across so many staff that are so passionate and want to make their venues accessible. And that is, like, for us, that just is music to our ears, because, you know, we want to help them achieve that for their customers and their patrons that are coming to the centres and want to use their facilities, because there are so many venues across Australia and the hydrotherapy for them is so important, or social, from a social and inclusion point of view as well.
Yeah, I see you nodding your head a bit there, Emma. I think you're sort of talking about those real advocates and that accessibility for the pool. Is that sort of what you've found in your experiences with Kiwana?
Yeah, totally. We find as well, it's handy for us. We have a hydrotherapy pool, we have a 25-meter pool, we have a leisure pool with a beach access. So we find our students, wherever they need, they can choose the pool that suits them. Our hoists to our car parks. Yeah, our downside is our changing rooms. We can make it a lot more accessible to have changing beds. That's our where we want to get funding in the future, so that we don't exclude anybody. It's accessible for everybody. And that's our goal.
I think you're exactly right. I think there's so many facilities are aging, but also that there's some of those accessibility challenges, and we just sometimes have to make do with what we've got. And that's certainly been my experience from teaching some 25 years ago. Is not letting the facility sometimes be a barrier to that. And I think same with Tanya, some of the work that you can do to retrofit within facilities, but more to Ruth, to the work that you do about sort of really empowering the individual teachers to be able to overcome accessibility barriers as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Our teachers sometimes get given a script on how to work through the lesson plan. I call that traditional lessons. I think that day is coming where, you know, we can't rely on that, because we are seeing an increase of challenging behaviours in our lessons. It's becoming more about not what we teach, but how we teach. You know, I think we need the creativity. The teachers need to be able to modify, use their intuition, and not just a predetermined lesson plan all the time, because one size does not fit everybody, as we all know.
Absolutely. I think that was my mantra for many years. One size does not fit all. That's
right. And we want to keep the teachers in the industry. You know, it's an exciting space, the disability space. And I think we can have a real impact, not just with the student, but the families as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on. This is a question for you, Rachel. So being a Paralympian, how do you feel that the Paralympics have inspired people with disability to become more physically active in the community?
I think it puts a highlight on disability, and it highlights that it's not necessarily a bad thing, because the stigma out there is disability is bad and disability means I can't. So when people see a platform like the Paralympics, they straight away go, oh, maybe I can do that. You know, and for people who've never been exposed to disability ever before, for them it can be confronting. It can be quite challenging with, you know, what do they do about it? How do they move forward? And how do they break those assumptions that they've got in their mind about disability? And, you know, the Paralympics is a platform that provides opportunity. And when we provide opportunity to people, we can start to create that change and start to make challenges become not a challenge. And like everyone here today is talking about, we just want it to be the norm. We don't want it to be anything special that we've got someone in our class with a disability. We just want it to be the complete normality of 2023 and beyond. And something like the Paralympics actually shows to people that regardless of whatever's hard in front of you right now, we're going to break through that. And exactly like what we're trying to do, break that barrier. So there's a lot that people don't see with the Paralympics, but it gets them thinking about, how can I get my swim school more accessible to people? How can we make it more affordable? What can we do so that we have disability at the forefront of our mind, and we have disability in a really positive light, because it can actually be a really, really good thing.
Absolutely, and I think
Yeah.
it's very much that the Paralympics for me is it's the focus on the achievement and the celebration of the hard work that athletes have done, irrespective of the challenges that they face. Emma, do you find that there's a bit of an increased awareness after the Paralympics last year with Tokyo, that sort of more people were with a bit of a buzz talking about the Paralympics a bit more?
Yes, definitely. And people seeing things on TV, peers, and they're having dreams. They're coming and going, I want to be that person in the future. How do I get there? And saying to the kids, you dream it, you believe it, you work hard enough, you can be there.
Yep.
And just encouraging those children, to be the best they can be, no matter what any issues they have. And let's work together to get there. And the kids are so inspiring. It's beautiful to see them in the water.
Fantastic. And that must be music to your ears, Rachel, to see the profound impact that the work that you do can have on the next generation of potential Paralympians.
Yeah, look, I love it, but at the same time, sometimes I feel a bit disappointed that it takes a Paralympics and that it takes being a Paralympian for people to all of a sudden care and to want to do something about disability and aquatics. So it's good, but ideally we shouldn't need to have that sort of platform for this to happen, but it is fantastic. There's always a big sort of interest after Paralympics, and then you'll find that within a year or so it'll die off and not as many people are interested, and then it'll start to come again. So hopefully in the future we can start to get to see people just interested like all the time and really passionate so much that at the end of the day we actually have to drive them away from the swim school because they just want to do and give more and more and more every day, because they're just all about opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think, Ruth, almost to Rachel's point with being able to leverage on this interest and continue it past that sort of 12 months after the Paralympics. And that's I suppose a real workforce issue as well, isn't it? We have to continue to grow and develop the workforce to be able to continue to leverage these opportunities. Because
I'd like to suggest, Rachel, that perhaps, of course, your wonderful success has been with family and all sorts of touch points, but maybe in your early years, maybe there was a swim teacher that sparked your interest, that understood the behaviour, your body movement, the biomechanics. Maybe they had a little bit to do with that because they understood. So I guess my point is that we need to, if we want a bigger pool in the Paralympic team in 2032 to choose champions from, we need to start at the grassroots and recognise and work with those students that might be a little challenged or disabled, but right through to the competitive ranks too. So the assistant coaches, the head coaches. So it just
absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Rachel, quite a few people know, but I'm not. I suppose not everyone on this call knows that you actually used to be an AUSTSWIM licensed teacher.
I did.
So what did being an AUSTSWIM licensed teacher teach you as an individual about swimming and water safety and the importance of people with disability learning swimming and water safety skills?
I guess the biggest thing it taught me was actually how much of a gap there is when it comes to people with disability and that opportunity. So when I used to teach swimming before I became in the wheelchair, I had some one-on-one classes, and a lot of those times they were people with a disability who couldn't quite, it's not that they couldn't fit in with our usual structure of our 4 to 6 kids in a class, but at the time there just wasn't, I guess, the resources. So the model was, if they have a disability, they're a one-on-one. So it really got me thinking of, well, how do we put this kid into the class with their friends so that, again, they've got that social atmosphere and they look forward to coming and they go, oh, I've got 5 friends in my class today and I really want to tell them what I did for the week. And and all of those sort of things. But also it got me realizing that there aren't enough people who are ready to take disability on board. So quite often it was a matter of put your hand up if you want to do it, and if you don't want to do it, it's okay. Rather than, I think probably the model should have been, everyone here who is a teacher at our swim school, we're all going to train you up in disability, and every single one of you is going to become competent in teaching students with a disability, so that if you have someone in your class, you don't need to pass them on to somebody else. So I think down the track, I would like to see that. And it's been really interesting, I guess, having both sides. So being on the teaching side, and now obviously being on the side where I'm, you know, quite elite, and seeing those pathways from grassroots. But, you know, as Ruth was saying, she made a really good point. It's not just about the swimmer. It's also about the teacher. It's about the coaches. It's about all the support staff. It's the whole entire process. And it's not something that you can just pull out of a textbook. I think we definitely need those lesson plans, especially for our new teachers, with just the basics of what we should be teaching in each lesson. But when it comes to disability, we really just need to do lots of workshops, lots of in the water upskilling, hands-on practical experience, and some theory and all of that sort of stuff. But we can't expect to give them a bit of paper and say, read off this, and this is what's going to happen with this child in your class, because I can guarantee you the complete opposite will happen. But that's okay. That's normal. That's to be expected. But I want to see that everyone becomes comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's disability for you. It's not the same every day. Two people, even if they have the same disability, will be completely different. And regardless of disability, just two people, we all learn in different ways. We all have things that we're really good at, and there's things when we look at aquatics where we're just not very good at it. We just can't grasp it. We're just never going to get there with a certain skill set. But that's all right. We focus on what we're good at, but we also use aquatics, I feel, for a therapy as well. So the amount of things that you can do in the water, and from my experience, I can do more in the water than I can on dry land. So like everyone here's been saying, sometimes this lesson is not just about getting the kid to be able to swim maybe 15 meters independently with great freestyle or whatever their stroke might be, but sometimes it's just getting them confident to actually walk through the door and not cry and not be traumatized by the experience, because they've had either a bad experience or the parent is just so overwhelmed with the whole process. We want them to wake up in the morning and go, woohoo, I'm going swimming. I'm excited about it and I want to be there. So it's been a really good learning opportunity. Yeah.
A couple of light bulb moments for me, and I think I love you saying we've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think I think we would all resonate with that. And I think, you know, it highlighted to me that concept of water frees a person from their disability, and that's just not physical disability. That's all types of disability, and we can't judge what someone can do on land and then automatically apply that they will be able or unable to do the same thing in the water. And I think from the I remember as an AUSTSWIM presenter for the Access and Inclusion course, and running through the teaching methodology and seeing the course candidates really their eyes are broadened, and they go, I could actually use this methodology for everyone. And that's the purpose. And I think that's and do you find that, Emma, with Kiwana, that people sort of go, wow, this isn't a separate teaching approach that we have to do. We can actually really sort of integrate how we teach across everyone now, irrespective of their disability.
Yeah, definitely. And as we taught, every student, as you know, is different. Not one of them is, you'll never find anybody ever the same. So you're constantly learning, constantly going on the internet, trying to find some more information, you know, talking to the families. When we get stuck, we're always looking to each other, team, what advice would you give me now? And yeah, you find out with everybody you're teaching, you always need that good teamwork around you to help you get the outcomes and be comfortable underwater. And as you said, don't be scared. And every kid, you know, they can have good weeks, bad weeks, don't give up, because the reward at the end is, you know, outstanding, and the smile on their faces. The small little achievements are huge for them, and you have to celebrate them.
Yep, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I think just adding on that really quickly, I think just also be prepared with knowing that, you know, you will need to be doing a little bit more, but that's okay. Like take that challenge on, and don't even call it a challenge. Like, let's find a way to sort of, I guess, frame it more positively, and just take it on as if you've just got any student, but know that, you know, you might need to be in the water with them, moving their body a specific way, because sometimes speaking to them and telling them what to do, they can't quite do it unless you physically, you know, are moving the limb in a certain way, and then neurologically they get that patterning. If they have some sort of physical disability, or they might just want to see you do it. You know, some of the kids with autism, they just want to watch you do it, and then they'll do it. They're happy. They want to copy you, and they go, oh, you did it, I can do it. So you just gotta like work out what works for them, and then just keep chipping away bit by bit. And absolutely. Be okay to take 2 steps back, because it's not going to be a straight line where you're moving forward every time.
Absolutely. Could not agree more.
Yeah.
Tanya, we know that aquatic facilities are ageing across Australia. Royal Life Saving Society produced a fantastic report which highlighted the ageing nature of our facilities. How have you seen the industry change their approach through either facility design or retrofitting to ensure that there's an equal access for people with disability?
Yeah, so we've seen a really pleasing, and I say that excitedly, because for a long time it's always been about ticking a box for compliance. And now we're actually seeing venues, architects, and access consultants wanting to make it happen to be inclusive and accessible. And, you know, a really great thing for venues to do to test their accessibility is, if they've got access to a wheelchair, is getting their staff to go out into the car park and try and get into the centre and into the water, into the change room and into the pool. And, you know, their staff will quickly be able to identify the gaps and potentially put together a plan on how to fix that, because we hear, you know, as Rachel mentioned, you know, the accessibility and inclusion, you just want a normal experience for everyone. And I think that's really important. And in terms of the building code, there's been some really good improvements now for any pools that are either brand new builds or renovated that have a perimeter over 70 metres, need to have an adequate access point for those with a physical disability. And we're now seeing that with an adult accessible change facility as well, which is really exciting.
That's fantastic. And I think we talk a lot about access, I suppose, for people with physical disabilities, but I know there's some aquatic centres that are now having quiet times as well. So, you know, areas where people who are often get overwhelmed through sensory stimulation can actually come and participate in a program in a more quieter environment as well, which is fantastic. So, the next one is to Emma and Ruth. Also regularly get questions about how to include people with disabilities. In your experience, what are a few practical tips that you can provide to teachers and managers so that they can open their doors to more people with disability?
I'll go first, if that's okay, Emma.
Perfect.
I kind of lent towards this before, but the 2 suggestions I have, and they're quite big, so I'll keep them short, but it's more about not what we teach, but how we teach. I think that's a conversation that's coming for the industry, but that's for another day. if we could understand that why the behaviour is happening in front of us, a lot of the time the disability is not obvious, and we all as teachers have that, a bit of intuition that maybe there's something not quite right with a particular student because of the behaviour that we are seeing. For example, I'll use a very simple one, the child that's going underwater all the time. Now, we all have those children, they pop up and ask the question, what are we doing? And we continually are frustrated by that. But there's a reason, there's generally a reason why that student seeks the underwater quietness. It's going to be much calming for them. There's a hydrostatic pressure that occurs once we go deeper and deeper in the water that envelopes our body, puts pressure on our joints and muscles. So we come back to the surface a lot calmer. It's a stress reliever. So perhaps that's why the student is showing that behaviour. It's not that they're being naughty all the time. So my question is, can we have flexibility within our lessons? We can all sit on the bottom and go underwater and experience that lovely calming sensation. We might have to do that a couple of times during the lesson just to help out with that particular student. So that's one area. I think we need to start to understand why the behaviour is happening, put in some practical skills and some strategies, some equipment, techniques to accommodate everybody in that class. My second quickly point is that I think we need to go back to having a lot more one-on-one classes. Rachel touched on this before, and it does kind of move into the therapy side of things. I agree. I call that aquatic therapy, but there are some children that just cannot, for the time being, join a group class. Doesn't mean that they can't transition later, but there are also some students with disabilities that we need to have safe propulsion, whatever that might look like. Be safe and have a good awareness around being in the water so that when they approach another body of water, there's comes kind of routine with going into the water. There's some safety aspects being taught. And then that goes into, as Rachel said also, the family. So families are feeling confident with their student, with their child feeling confident in the water and reasonably safe with some safe propulsion. Well, the family may just accept that backyard barbecue invitation by their neighbour. They have a pool that they have never been able to accept before. Why? Because they haven't felt confident to have that child around a body of water. So the impact is huge. It just ripples out to the families, the community, just from taking the step back and working out, what the behaviour is, and let's have some more one-on-one lessons. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You took all my answers there, Ruth. That was really my focus is all about the flexibility and adapting where you can. We have, I think we have 54 students this term in one-on-one lessons, and we try and, if we can, transition into groups. Some one-on-one lessons turn into two-on-one because we find they want to race and compete with someone similar, they build friendships. We've got these two lads on a Monday night that go to birthday parties together now. They become friends through their swimming. We have children come through that are scared to even be here. So we'll say, look, come in for a trial. Let's see if we need to find you a group class. Even trying to find them a suitable instructor that might, sometimes we say, oh, you want to need a nice mummy teacher, have that nice figure. Some of them like to have the fun students that high five all the time. It's trying to be, as you said, a flexible, adaptable, and accommodating. The families will stay with you and then spread that word through their Facebook groups. Our wait lists for some of our classes are huge. It's the space and the shortage of instructors. We'll get that. And we're always learning.
But I think, just to add quickly, if I can, Brad, I think also with a lot of the swimming lessons that happen, whether they're group or more so one-on-one on the therapy side of it, there's fine and gross motor skills that's happening, the development of proprioception, there's self-regulation, there's increased muscle tone, core strength. All that has an impact on their life on land. So the water is such a magical medium. We can't forget that side of it.
And I think to both points, and I think Rachel, you'll probably agree here that it's even though it might be a one-on-one lesson, it's being part of this aquatic environment, and I'm around other people, and we're creating a real social dynamic in a social atmosphere where there's this individual that may never have felt included in something before now feels like they're just like everybody else. And I think that's the really exciting part about the water.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And like everyone said, you know, sometimes you do need that one-on-one. You know, in my experience, even now, when I'm coached towards the goal of Paralympics, a lot of my training sessions are one-on-one. And that's purely because my needs are specific to sort of the fact that I can't really integrate with a squad because there isn't a squad like me. So we don't have a lot of people, I guess, swimming with my ability or similar. So until we have that, then that option's just not really going to be available. But for me also, and I'm sure it's the same, you know, with our Learn to Swim kids, if you have too many people in the water gets really choppy, your balance gets affected, your stroke then gets affected, and then really there's no point trying to swim because you're not swimming well and you're not achieving the outcomes of what you're trying to achieve. So there's a lot of factors that can come into play, and I think sometimes having a mix is really good. So having those one-on-ones, and then when you can do maybe a 2-on-1 and then a 3, or just so that they start to sort of, I guess, be okay with transitioning to the next stage, because some of these kids I've found when I taught, they get really comfortable with what's happening now, and you put them in somewhere else and they straight away, it's too much for them. They go, oh, but this hasn't happened before. They don't like it. So we need to, I guess, constantly change it up as well, just for that, you know, variety. And like Ruth was saying, really good point about it translates. So everything we do in the water, it's translating to day-to-day life. And that is huge. That's almost bigger than the swimming in itself. And I think when we think of it that way, yes, potentially we're having that therapy approach, but when it comes to disability, we always will be having a few more hats to be wearing. And that's okay, because that can sometimes, I guess, start to formulate how we actually do the lesson. So we're not necessarily thinking of it as a swimming lesson, but we're almost thinking of it as, you know, how do we get this person moving better in the water? How do we get them floating? How do we get them functionally doing the things that we know the other kids can just do if we ask them? So it's just got to be like really individualized, and just the willingness, like Ruth and everyone saying here, just be willing to do it. My coach that coaches me at the moment for the Paralympics, he's never coached anyone with a disability before, and my other coaches hadn't either. So they could have easily said no. They've never had any experience with it, and it was just a big learning opportunity for them and for me. I had to learn how to work with him. He had to learn how to work with me. And it was almost like you are a Learn to Swim kid, because you are trying to work out how we're going to move and how we're going to move well in the water. So it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're, you know, a 1-year-old completely new to life, so to speak, or you're someone who's, you know, aging. Aquatics, there's a lot that you can do with a 1-year-old that you can do with someone in their 70s or their 80s. There's a lot of similarities.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's okay.
Absolutely, and you've had a fantastic segue into my next question, which was, and this is to the whole panel. Age-related disability is the fastest growing disability demographic in Australia, making up more than half of all people with disabilities. With that in mind, how does AUSTSWIM and the aquatics industry transform in order to remain relevant for the needs of this new growing community? Who would like to go first? I might throw to Tanya first.
Thanks, Brad. So similar to what we discussed before about access and inclusion, really it comes down to communication of what's available, what classes are on offer for the patrons, and who they're targeted at. Because every aquatic centre should have a list of what accessible features they have. Every aquatic operator should have a list of which venues are accessible, and clearer, better communication predominantly. Getting it out on your Facebook page, your Instagram, TikTok and you know, your website, and just making sure all your venue staff have all that information. For those people that don't have anything access to social media, which is, you know, predominantly a good chunk of aging popularity, and just making sure the older generations are aware, and just making them feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Emma, how about some of your experiences with Kiwana? How do we cater for this new, or not new, but growing community in Australia?
We find here our aging clientele coming in mainly for the social interactions and connections they make from like a walking group. They come in the mornings. They're here to have, that's probably the only conversation they get most days, you know. It's that social connection. They feel part of the community. And then we get their feedback. What do they want to see when they come here? You know, they want to see more glass in the hydrotherapy pool. They'll go over across the road to have a coffee together. And we find our lifeguards have great interactions with them, ask them how their day is, trying to find out their names. We find it's more of a community based to try and get the aging community come through, and explain to them that you're never too old to learn anything. You know, we can find something for you to do. We'll work. We'll, you know, we're employing older people as well as instructors, so they see. Yeah, you might be 70. You can work here as a swim instructor. You know, you're never too old for anything. Absolutely.
I remember as a young aquarobics instructor, which not many people know that I used to be an aquarobics instructor. One of my favorite classes was my Friday morning class. And I think the average age of the people in that class was around 75. And we had, you know, 30 people in that class. And exactly to your point, Emma, they came primarily for the social interaction, the ability to be able to connect with others and to have a bit of fun in the water. And that was the best thing for them to get out of that. So.
And they love it. I mean, like where I train, we've got a master's squad, and they train, they all turn up, and if they're not there, they egg each other on. Where were you yesterday? You know, why didn't you come? Especially the older ones that go, you're younger than me, you should have come. And you know, straight after, they all sit outside and have their coffee and their cake after every single swim, and I go, you know what, that's what I want to be like when I'm older, because it's just the atmosphere. Yeah, absolutely. You've got people just getting in there, giving it a go. They've all got, you know, a bad shoulder, they can't move all that well, some of them, but they still turn up. And absolutely. The coach is the same age, and that has seen more people of that age come because they feel comfortable. So sometimes it's about who you put with a squad as well. So if you put some 20-year-old who's the instructor, someone in their 80s might not feel comfortable with that. Because,
Absolutely.
But I also think, just really quickly, I don't actually think we really have much of a sort of, I guess, program in Australia where we have, say, seniors with a disability, say they've either acquired it or they've grown up with it. We don't really have a lot of that. So we have our seniors coming in who might have mobility issues, but that might be from just aging. So we don't really cater at the moment for, you know, it might be people with cerebral palsy who they've had it their whole life, they've used a chair their whole life, and they still need that really specific sort of program in the water. But then we've also got the aging factors to take into consideration as well. So there's a lot of development areas, I think, that we can still expand on in the space of aquatics. And I think it just starts with everyone just wanting to say yes to opportunity.
Absolutely. Anything to add, Ruth?
It's not really an area of my expertise. I unfortunately haven't had a lot of experience with the ageing population and disabilities. It's mainly around children. However, what I will reflect on is one of the big public pools that I do operate out of. There's just this wonderful vibe. You know, it's engaging. It's they're so willing to include everybody that it's just quite nice to be involved with, even though, you know, I'm sitting back in a different area. But yeah, I think the NDIS and the carers that come with a lot of the older clientele, it's just seamless at this particular pool, and it's really great to watch. But yeah, it's a willingness again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of questions from our group. So one question from Lara was, what advice would you give to someone trying to create a more accessible sensory environment for dedicated times during the week?
Is the question around, you know, sensory overload to try and...
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone who's trying to create a more accessible sensory environment within their facility or their swim school?
Trying to find the quieter times where lessons could occur, the lights, the, you know, water and pools can be just noisy all the time. White lights, the amount of other people and activity in the pool at the same time. Have sensory, not so much toys, but equipment like calming pools or sensory things that can be held, squeezed, watched, worked with. You know, some equipment is really important in a question like that.
How about you, Emma? Any sort of things that you do within Kiwanis to create an environment that is a little bit lower level in terms of sensory stimulation?
Yeah. We're quite handy. We've got a nice enclosed hydrotherapy area with closed doors, so we can hire that area at say 3 o'clock when there's hardly anybody in the centre. Just have 2 or 3 children in there and their families. That's an easy one for us here. Those daytime sessions, we find that they can get out of school sometimes is seen as additional benefits for them to come to lessons early in the mornings. But yeah, I do know that other centres will shut off play equipment to lessen the noise down, because there's so many distractions, especially in our big 25-metre pool. It's so busy, so noisy, and we'll find the children will spend most of the time at the water for their quiet place. So if you can find a nice quiet time to have students come through, maybe weekends when it's a lot quieter, go for it. That's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's like head sensitivities, you know, sensory issues can be around the head, no expectation for swimming caps, and then there's some really great goggles on the market that's much better for students that have head sensitivities in particular.
Another question from the group from Nadia. Next level thinking is to include multicultural people with disabilities in our planning as well. Do you have any advice or ideas around that? Multicultural people with disabilities.
It's probably that collaboration. So if it's not your field, ask someone who deals with it. If you deal with disability and they deal with the multiculturalism, connect, share your ideas, and then sort of formulate your plan, because if you don't, I guess, reach out to people who have that experience, you're just sort of selling yourself short. You know, you're making it harder for yourself. If there's someone available who can help you, bring them in, get their tips and tricks on what they've done that's worked, and
great idea. Last question from the group at the moment is specifically to Emma. What advice does Emma have to engage new teachers into teaching people with disability, noting that not all feel immediately confident?
We do a lot of shadow hours here with my instructors. You know, I wouldn't chuck a new instructor in at deep end for any class, no matter, you know, let's work together. Shadow, I encourage my staff to look online, get some information. When they first meet a child coming to lessons, let's speak to their parents. What's their favourite toy? Bring their favourite toy to the water. What's their songs? Why are you here? We ask so many questions to try and get the right outcome. How would you like to enter the pool? Some kids don't want to use the steps. They want to do a safe entry. They don't like certain toys, equipment, noodles. There's just so many questions and you never stop learning. but I would always, and then we have on decks who will then shadow and help and ask questions and have that advice, who have been here for a very long time. And as you know, every student's different. It might not work the first time. Try and error, try something the next time. But I recommend the internet research. Get as much information as possible, because you never get it right the first time. Just keep trying, never give up.
And I think that's the thing. I think we've all alluded to it over the last hour. Is everyone's unique and everyone's different, and you know, irrespective of ability or disability. You know, the big thing for teachers in the water is to actually make sure that they look, they listen, they learn, they understand, and then they create something for them. So last question. There's been a lot of talk about the green and gold runway into Brisbane 2032. But this is a little bit of a different question. What should swimming and water safety look like for aquatics in 2032? So if you could cast your mind forward 10 years, what would you like to see swimming and water safety look like for people with disability and our industry in general?
So I'm probably talking industry in general. I get excited thinking about the next 10 years because I'm talking with lots of people via LinkedIn and Zoom around the world, and a lot of the teachers in the aquatics industry around the world are finding the same challenges as we are, which is comforting to know that there's an increase in children with special needs and coming into our lessons, but yet the training is lacking. So I think we all agree that that side of it is really paramount. But I also think Australia could actually lead the world in this space, in understanding behaviours, understanding the disability, working with what is presented in front of us and understanding that to a really good level and being able to move the industry forward. I really think that, you know, AUSTSWIM can lead Australia, if not the world, in this platform, in this. And I think, as Rachel touched on it too, standing beside that within the industry could be an arm of aquatic therapy where, you know, there is the therapy side of it is brought to the surface and also researched and you know, the benefits of aquatic therapy and how it flows onto the family. So there's two really big things that are coming there. And then the pool, as I said before, the pool for the Paralympians, it's actually bigger, so we can choose from a bigger pool, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, and I mean, you know, like if we had millions of dollars, let's create every single swim centre where we've got the variety of pools. So we have our hydro pool, but then maybe we have a 25-metre pool that isn't as hot, but it's not really cold, and you know, people can go and swim in there, but then they're not going to get freezing and have all those sort of issues come to play. So I think, like, let's harness that we have the Olympics and Paralympics in 10 years' time. Let's take that opportunity because it's in our backyard. It will never likely happen again like this. So let's really use it to, you know, just start reaching out to everyone. If you don't really know, I guess, what you're doing as a swim teacher, reach out to maybe a physio that has experience with neurological and they can upskill you. And just, it's really, really exciting that we've got 2032 in Brisbane. So if we can get disability sort of, I guess, seamless, right? It's not even going to be a thought. It's just going to be what we do in 2032 and beyond. So it's not even going to be a conversation of we have to include someone. How do we do it? How do we teach them? It's just going to be saying, right, we have 5 students in our class today and we carry on. Absolutely. Or we have 1 and they're the one with the disability. But it needs to be easier, and I don't want people being afraid, I guess.
Yeah. Tanya, what about you? What does swimming and water safety look like for disability in 2032 for you?
Yeah, so disability in aquatics is something we definitely live and breathe every day. So we'd love to see in swimming and water safety, planning and passion. Consideration for access from the planning phase well before design stage, a universal design and having the right professionals engaged from the early stage, such as an access consultant or committee. A really good strategic intent and awareness of all levels of ability and mobility in the community. And just putting yourself in the shoes of others at all stages of life. In 2018, our team were involved with the accessibility for the para-athletes at the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast. And I really believe by 2032 that we'll be a fully accessible nation. Swimming and water safety is the key to most people's lives on this webinar, and our team are excited to see, you know, where that will be in 2032. And I think, you know, very simple, but water represents freedom for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucky last, Emma, what does swimming and water safety look like for you in 2032?
The main one is that everybody has opportunity to be around water and experience activities, from being safe in the water, swimming lessons, diving. You know, every school should be able to get in for their lessons. You know, there's been such a turmoil through COVID where so many kids have missed out on swimming lessons in the last few years, can't afford private lessons. You know, that we need to. Let's just get everybody in actual lessons in the water, having fun, being safe.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, time certainly flies when you're having fun. Can't believe we've filled an hour already. But I'd really like to thank our panelists, Emma, Tanya, Rachel, and Ruth. Thank you for your time and your expertise. And thank you to Janaea as well. I'm sure that your hands will need a rest after this. But thank you for your efforts as well. Just my final points, AUSTSWIM have recently defined a belief, and that belief is that everyone deserves the right to be safer in and around the water. Teaching swimming and water safety skills is not a luxury, it's a right, and everyone deserves the right to love being in the water, to be free in the water. And I'm really excited by the work that AUSTSWIM will be doing in collaboration with the industry moving forward as we create opportunities for everyone to deserve swimming and water safety. Thank you everyone for your attendance today, and I look forward to working with you over the coming months and years. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brad.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone for attending.